Hello everyone. Today I'm actually going to be showing you a new project I've been working on. This one here I've actually finished. This is actually a synthesizer that belongs to one of my friends, Alex Kaufman, and he got this thing pretty cheap, and so I went through it and just kind of repaired it. I didn't really restore it as much as I did repair because it already worked. It just had a few little minor issues that I took care of. Mainly just updating some things like the voltage regulators, capacitors, all that good stuff. And I did actually modify this one a little bit. I actually installed a cooling fan on the heatsink, just a little small cooling fan just to keep some air flowing through it. Nothing major. Drilled a hole and built him a wiring harness and ran it in and actually wired into his 15-volt section of his power supply. And I built a resistor network. I can't remember, I think it was like 68 ohms if I remember right what I built. And basically it's a 12-volt fan, and I got it running on like 7 volts. So it slowed down the RPM so it's not noisy, and I actually installed it with felt padding. I actually put felt inside the fins of the heatsink and used them to anchor the screws in. So the fan's actually well attached. It's in there real good and tight, and it all runs really cool now. I don't have to worry about any heat. I know I was testing this thing out, and after like 3 hours of being powered up, it would just get really hot, and evidently that was normal, because from everything I've read, it usually gets really warm. But I didn't like heat, because anytime you have heat sitting on components, it actually stresses them, especially regulators, and it actually can cause your voltages to vary based off temperature. And so what I did, I ended up installing this little fan just to kind of help keep some heat off of it so the components will last longer. It'll actually expand the life of those regulators. But anyways, I cleaned this one up, and as you can hear, it's just a quick little sound I built. It's actually using this section right here, which is actually we can create some L-film synthesis effects based off oscillator 2. It actually drives your PWM and your filter and your frequency A, as you can hear. There it is without it. There it is driving the PWM. Because if you was to go to a low frequency, actually make that track the keyboard. Of course, you can adjust the mount. Get that really nice L-film synthesis kind of effects going. And it's actually using an envelope generator as well, the filter envelope generator. I can adjust that. As you can hear, I'm going to engage a little less decay. There's some of your nice L-film synthesis. But also, I can't really talk about the Prophet 5 without talking about some Gary Newman, because he uses these things quite a bit. A lot of people use these because they're very reliable synths. But you'll recognize some of these sounds if you're a Gary Newman fan. The album My Assassin, Music for Chameleons comes to mind, and a few other tracks he uses this exact sound on, which you'll recognize. It's just kind of got this eerie kind of bell sound. But kind of a cool sound. There's another sound on here, which if you've listen to Living Ornaments live, 1979 I believe it was, you'll hear the intro with the Polymoog. Of course it's Vox Humana with this sound over it. Let me see if I can do this one-handed. A really powerful sound. So what else we got here? There's some other Gary Newman sounds as well I recognized when I started playing this thing. So I'm finding it. There it is. I heard him with this, with a little modulation. Because I don't know any songs right offhand, but yeah, very interesting sounds. And you know, it's one of those situations where I hear a lot of people try to trash the Polymoog or trash this and say they're you know, either one of them's got this issue. And really, I have to be honest with you, I own both of them. I own the Polymoog, and this isn't mine, but I've had the chance and privilege of working on this thing for about 4 months, so I've got to really understand this synth inside and out. And you can't really compare them because they're completely different synth engines. This one has 5 voices, but that one has unlimited voices. So you do have that unlimited polyphony on the Polymoog using divider circuits. And no, divider circuits do not suck. They're actually really good if they're built correctly. And the Polymoog is built what I would call correctly because they actually used wave shaping for each key. So even though you have the raw divider circuit driving all the keys actually have their individual dynamics and individual kind of characteristics. So it actually makes the Polymoog stand apart from any other divide circuit synthesizer. So it's a lot different than what most people kind of think about divider circuits. Now this, on the other hand, does have some similarities to the Polymoog as far as some of the tones you can get, but it's mainly PWM, pulse width modulation. That does a lot for polyphonic synthesizers. But you know, it's like I said, you can't really compare the two as one being better than the other or one being worse, because they're both very good synths in my opinion. And they both have certain features that set them apart from each other. And for instance, one being the LFO section. I mean, the Prophet 5 has a very limited little LFO section, even though you can use oscillator 2 as an LFO source if you do that. But you lose oscillator. And with the Polymoog, you've got 2 modulation sources just for pitch, and you got a dedicated LFO circuit for PWM as well. So you can get some very complex things out of the Polymoog, where this is a little more simple on the modulation aspect. Of course, you can mix all these different modulations together, so you get things like this, so you hear, which is pretty cool, and you can actually get some pretty decent. But as far as getting individual speeds and all that, it's not really possible unless you lose an oscillator and then go up here and set this up. And then, of course, we'll see what that sounds like. Of course, we got that engaged. We'll go to. So now you kind of got So you got some cool kind of things, but it's only using one oscillator. But it's like I said, you can't really trash one or the other because they're both really good synthesizers. And you know, as far as polyphony goes, the Polymoog pretty much blows this one out of the water because it has unlimited polyphony. However, this thing can blow the Polymoog out of the water in some things. Like for instance, when you hit unison on this rascal. Let me go to a preset here that actually has it. See, that's not it. I'm trying to remember where all these programs are. I think this, yeah, here it is. It's lit up now. This is something the Polymoog will never do. So you can see there, that's something completely different, and you can actually hear a lot of Gary Newman in that as well, as long as some other bands. There's a lot of people that use these synths, including Yellow Magic Orchestra, which is a Japanese band I've really grown to like over the past years. But then you can get some similar sounds to Polymoog's. Try and think of something here. But as you can hear, I mean, the sounds are different. They're not... Because I'm also a Mannheim Steamrollers fan, so I can get a few sounds that they used in their Prophet 5. Because they used a Prophet 5 as well. And so now here's kind of a Polymoog-ish kind of sound. We'll set up a release time, slow attack. I always love slow attacks with strings. Get a nice slow attack, slow decay time, and you get some really nice filter there. Turn that up a little bit more. As you can hear, this thing, it's got some really good sounds. Of course, you know, with something like that, if I was to play the whole keys, you'd hear voices cut out because you only got 5 voices. Whereas you was play the scale and the Polymoog, you'd just keep going, especially if you had the decay turned all the way up on the envelope contour section. You could actually make that thing sustain with all notes. So that's something that's really cool to do sometimes. But let's see what else I got here. I'm just kind of going through some sounds. Yeah, something weird. And that's using this oscillator here. There we go. So you can they get into some weird stuff. But anyways, I just thought I'd take a quick minute here and show you the new project that I've been working on, and fixing to ship it out to Alex, get it all boxed back up, and it's ready to go out the door. After a few more hours of burn-in, it's gonna be good. But anyways, thanks very much for watching, and take care.